Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. Today's another AMA episode. That is, Ask Me Anything. If you have a question you think is going to be of broad interest, send it in. I'll answer it live on the air, because I love to answer your questions. Send your questions to Victor at victorjm.com. That's Victor at victorjm.com. This question came up on Saturday, and it was part of a lunch discussion with a group of investors this past weekend. This particular sponsor was trying to figure out how to work with a private lender who would be lending funds that the project sponsor would ultimately use to fund the earnest money deposit and the equity for the project. The lender wanted a 10% rate of return on their money. They were also asking which property would be used to secure the loan. But the property hasn't been purchased yet. How can the sponsor convince the lender to keep the money available until it's needed so the 10% interest isn't being spent on money that can't be put to work yet? Well, this is a terrific question, and it's one that comes up very frequently. The first thing to pay attention to is the fact that money is not always green. Money always has an agenda. When I wrote the book Magnetic Capital, I found that raising money was straightforward when there's a perfect fit between the goals for the money and the goals for the project. In fact, there's 5 elements to raising money, and if one or more of these elements are missing, then raising money becomes pretty problematic. The 5 principles are, number 1, relationship. Most people are not going to part with hundreds of thousands of their hard-earned cash with folks they don't have a relationship with. Number 2 is trust. That's a deep psychological contract with a lot of layers to it. Number 3, results. What's your track record? Do you have the experience to be doing this project and doing it repeatably? Number 4, you've got to have a compelling opportunity. And number 5, you have to have perfect alignment between the goals for the money and the goals for the project. Now, from your question, it seems like you've got enough of a relationship for them to be offering you the funding. It also seems like the trust is there as well. You've got a pretty strong track record in construction, and I'm guessing the project is compelling enough. Where you seem to be having trouble is in the last element called alignment. And it's important to match the goals of the money and the goals of the project. And if you don't have a perfect match between those objectives, don't take the money because you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Alignment covers the structure and the terms of the transaction. These are things like the size of the investment, the length of time the money's going to be tied up for, what's the rate of return, how are the funds going to be secured? Are they going to be secured or not? What's the tax consequence? What's the control structure? What's the risk? And the first thing to be aware of is that you're proposing a structure that might be governed by securities laws. It's not my role here to provide legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm definitely not a securities lawyer. I recommend you get legal advice from a local securities lawyer. Now, anytime you have a situation where there's an active party who brings the effort, that's you, and a passive party who's bringing the money, you could be walking into securities territory. Now, you may qualify for one or more exemptions. A mortgage exemption, for example, is one of the securities exemptions that might apply in this instance. But if you're going to be using the funds for the earnest money deposit before the property's been purchased, you're going to need another property to secure those funds with before closing on the land. Now, unless you're prepared to cross-collateralize, it's not going to be possible to use the mortgage exemption. Seems to me like you have a fundamental mismatch between the goals for this particular lender and the goals for the project. There should never be anything in the process of raising capital that feels forced. It seems to me like you're ideally looking for an equity partner. An equity investment is not a secured investment. It's an ownership investment, not a loan. You can get a loan for the rest of the project, but you're going to need some equity in the project. The first money into a project is typically the equity. It could be that you're talking to a private lender because you lack the relationships with equity investors that you might need for your projects. I can tell you that these people are out there, and it will take some time to cultivate those relationships. Equity investors can sometimes be found through exempt market dealers. These folks are authorized to deal in private securities in exchange for a fee. And if you're really stuck and you're looking to raise money quickly, this might be the way to go. Other ideas would be to bring a partner into your project as a co-sponsor who can help you with the project execution including helping with raising the capital. In most jurisdictions, it's against the law to pay someone for an introduction to a funding source unless they carry the relevant license. If you're looking to find mortgage money, then you would need to work with a mortgage broker who's licensed to practice in that area. If you're looking for equity, then maybe an exempt market dealer might be the way to go. Accountants and lawyers can also be a good source of introductions to potential funding partners. But if you bring an investor into a project to co-invest with you, you might also consider a joint venture partnership. This could involve you investing a small amount of your own cash and involving the investor directly in decision-making. That way, you're both contributing money to the project and all the partners are active in the venture. They become a full partner in the joint venture, and then you don't have to worry about compliance with securities laws because a joint venture where all members are active is not a security. This is such a great question, and it's one that comes up frequently. Whenever you're looking to raise money, make sure you've got that perfect fit between the goals for the money and the goals for your project. Have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.